Mitch freaking Haniger.
Harvey Martin.
Do you remember how do you like that?
Spark that thing up.
Is that length good for you?
I think so. You hear me?
I hear you. I don't love it. I'd like it to be
Closer.
a little bit close. Well, you got to watch that thing.
You got it?
There you go.
You got the whole setup here. I've never done this before.
Remember our first podcast we ever did?
Yeah. Zoom.
When was that? I wasn't even boys with you yet then.
2020.
Really. Well, would you have considered us boys then? I don't feel like we were boys.
No, that was like the first time I ever talked to you.
I feel like that was.
Yeah.
How did I reach out to you?
Mutual friend, I think.
All right, here it is, the smoke. I love that out of you, kid. It's great to see you. Just feel it.
Gotta waft it around.
Yeah. Tommy the Stella. I've been giving him tons of credit.
To get you on the stage or what?
No, he just always
Palo Santo?
He always told me to respect the space of conversation. I think I've referenced that like 4 or 5 podcasts so far. And you sometimes you get embarrassed because you go, I've been talking about that a lot, but it's a truth.
Yeah.
It's a heavy truth.
He taught you.
It is a heavy truth. Yeah, man. So 2020 was our first one on Zoom. And a mutual friend. Do you remember who that was?
I don't.
And who were you playing with then?
I was with Seattle. That year was the COVID year. I was rehabbing. I missed that whole season. Yeah, and someone, I think you reached out through a mutual friend and was like, hey, I've been hearing, I got to have you on my podcast. Would you like? I was like, yeah, I got a lot of free time. Let's do it.
Because it was during COVID, so you weren't playing.
No, summertime.
So yeah, how do you like the evolution of the pod?
Sweet.
In
person's better for sure.
100%.
Yeah.
We were talking about this last night because I've been doing some digital conversations, and it's interesting because the speed in which you can pop them out is so quick and it's easy.
Yeah.
Right. Like even like with you, for instance, like you had to you just got out of training, you got to drive over here. Like you have to commit time outside of this time.
Right.
And obviously it's easier for me because I'm here. You have to come to me.
Yeah.
So you're giving all the time away, but then, and it is more powerful doing something in person. But one of the things is it's been so nice to like text somebody and be like, hey, you want to rip a podcast today at 11 a.m.? Yeah. And they can be like, no, and be like, all right, let's do it tomorrow at 11 a.m. And then we just call each other.
Yeah.
And I've been using this app and I've been doing it digitally. So I was telling Chelsea this last night. I was like, it's such a weird space to be in because I know this is more important. I feel like this is more important. I'm going to toss this over to you. But then the like easiness of doing things digitally is such like a paradox because I could probably rip like 3 podcasts a day.
Oh yeah.
And just I could have just called you and been like, hey, you want to just do it to this morning before you leave for work? We'll just have a coffee. Yeah. We'll just record it, move on with our lives. Yeah. Well, what's your take on that? It doesn't have to be podcast worthy. It could just be like what's your take on that?
Well, I think it's better in person, but there's going to be some challenges there with scheduling and, with certain people, but, or if people aren't living in Arizona. But I think the digital space is great to use if you need to use it. Yeah. Trying to rip one with someone in New York, like it's a lot easier to just be like, all right, we'll do this digitally. For sure. Okay. Well, let me take you into what I'm currently thinking. And I've never said this on a recorded thing just yet. I'm sure I'm going to talk a lot about this as Breaking it grows. News. Yeah, well, this is one of the reasons why I love hanging out with you, man, because of stuff like this. And I told you, it's more selfishly, it's like I'm hanging out with my buddy right now. Yeah. And we haven't been able to talk, but we're recording a friend's conversation. But so I'm writing another book right now. And the other day I go for a walk, and in the midst of my walk, it hits me because the first book I ever wrote, I researched a ton. The second book, I tried not to research, but I still did. This third book, I realized that if I have any question, and we can dive into the depths of this, but I'm going to hand it over to you in a second. I realized that if I have any question that comes to me, I can type it into the internet and AI will generate the answer based off of humanity. Humanity's database of inputs that we've thrown into artificial intelligence now gets generated to me off any question imaginable, right? So then I started thinking, if I just accept that, writing a book becomes the easiest thing imaginable
Because writing is, and putting a book and content together is based off of articulating curiosity and trying to ask your own questions. So if it's my own question coming from my own thought, and I ask artificial intelligence now, and this was the answer I came up with. I no longer have to strive to study to be Albert Einstein, because I am Albert Einstein. Do you follow?
Kind of. I mean, the access to information is insane.
Yeah. Go on.
I mean, I don't know how that makes you Albert Einstein, but I feel like your ability to learn quickly is insane right now.
Insane. Any
question you have is answered immediately.
Yeah.
Does it make you less creative?
Well, I don't know. That's why I brought it up. I mean, I have my ideas.
Sometimes things you have to like pull apart a question and think about different ways of answering it, right?
Well, I don't know. I think of it as like, for me, I thought about it as I can either accept this. So the first book I ever read, I would read an entire research article to accumulate the answer.
I think it'll just make you write faster.
That's what I felt like.
Yeah.
It made me write faster. And I thought to myself, if somebody was writing a book 700 years ago and they had access to this, they would have used it. Yeah. And the reason why I'm tying this all together is one part of me morally goes, is that right?
Yeah.
Is this morally accurate to use this thing? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And it's the same thing of, is it morally accurate to just bang out quantity on podcast and just say, hey, let's not even hang out in person. Like, just call me and let's just rip it on the digital.
Yeah.
Or is that, because this requires way more time.
Right.
Even though the length of the conversation will be the same, this requires a lot more time. We did have to schedule it. You did have to come over here.
Right.
So it's similar to what I'm saying about reading research or information. If I'm going to read the Bible, I have to read the Bible.
Right.
It might take me 2 years. But if I want to ask any question about Jesus, AI is going to give me the answer right now. So what do we do about that?
I definitely don't have the answer to that, but I think if you're using AI to help you write better, I think it becomes a problem when you're just taking the answers and throwing them in versus like using it to help you write better or learn more about a subject. You can act like you're writing a book, and instead of reading a full research article, you can just say, ask it a main question, and you're going to get a summarization, and that's going to help you write more that day, as opposed to it took you 4 or 5 hours to read a research paper. And then you have to digest that and put that into words. You can get the gist of it fast. So I think it's super helpful. I don't really see that as cheating, but if you ask it a question, you copy and paste it into your book. That's a problem, right?
Yeah. I mean, but think about but that's what I'm asking myself, is because if it's my question, does AI generate it to my question? I don't know. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah. I haven't used it enough.
Well, what's your take on it? I mean, you're curious, dude. How do you gather or sort through information now of anything?
Talking to people, reading a book, listening to a podcast, listening to something on YouTube, and then thinking about it. I've used AI like 3 times maybe.
Really?
So it's super new to me. Yeah. There's not a lot for me to use it for, at least from what I found. Maybe I should ask it how to hit a baseball. I don't know.
Yeah. What do you think it would say to you?
I don't know.
Let's test that out. Now I got to get off the airplane mode here for a second. But so if I say this, how to hit a baseball, how do I hit a baseball?
Yeah.
How do I hit a baseball? It's going to give us an answer. All right. So I'm going to answer this for you. So this is what I'm talking about. You see how it says AI overview?
Yeah.
This is what I realized the other day. So to hit a baseball, you can use your whole body to swing the bat, with your hips leading the way. You can also try these tips. Grip. Hold the bat lightly and loosely with your fingers, not your palms. Is that accurate?
Most would say that.
Okay, stance. Stand with your feet shoulder width apart. Knees bent and weight balanced on both feet. Accurate?
Yes.
Okay. Swing through the ball, keeping your elbows close to your sides. Accurate?
Mm-hmm.
Wow, we're killing it, AI. Timing. Time your swing so that your upper torso faces the pitcher when you hit the ball. That one, time your swing so that your upper torso faces the pitcher when you hit the ball. That's fair.
Close.
Yeah. That could be interpreted, I feel like, differently. Contact. Aim to hit the ball with the sweet spot of the bat. But yeah, I don't want to say that's obvious because we're doing this experiment, which is about 5 to 7 inches from the top. But that's like in tails all the time, right?
Yeah.
That's not agreeable.
Yeah.
Of anything. And then follow through, swing through the ball, following through with your swing. That's fair.
Yeah.
Okay, you can also try these tips to improve your swing. Keep your shoulders level and relaxed. Add a slight rhythmic movement to your stance. Keep your back close to your body and pivot on your back toes as you swing. And then there's multiple videos that can teach you how to do that. Is that fair?
So I would say almost all of it is accurate.
Okay, so then take me. Okay, so yeah, you're a ball player.
Yeah, I mean, you want to get into baseball talk?
No, I want to get into that talk of that right there because that answers that question.
Yeah.
So, but then you spent your whole life asking that question. I would imagine. Is that fair? Somewhat fair? How do I hit a baseball?
Yeah, I mean, no.
No.
I just brought that up for this, but it's like, I would say, how do I improve at hitting a baseball? And then those are questions, and usually they're a lot more detailed. But I have a thing about hitting that I've talked about with guys is like, I think everyone's just guessing of, like, nobody really knows. Everybody's different. And like, you asked me a year ago, it would have been different than today. You asked me 5 years. So it's like, nobody really knows. Everyone's still trying to figure it out. There's only a couple guys on the face of the earth that have figured it out.
Maybe. Who would even,
So it's
maybe.
like,
And that's subjective, I feel like.
yeah.
Well, I think the point of what I just
But that's
did.
also like writing a book, right? You can talk to 50 different best-selling authors, and you might get 50 different things.
Well, I think the paradox of what we're talking about is that where I came to an awakening, if you will, it was a hard day when I thought about this, and maybe I can try to sum it up. Because what hit me is what just happened. How do I hit a baseball? I can type that into Google and we just got answers. And it was pretty accurate. Like that's pretty much what we can get. And commercially, we package information and sell it. And I wrote this down that day. I said, as a teacher, to make the student self-reliant is artistic.
Right.
To make the student reliant is commerce. So I can't have you become reliant. Because if you do become self-reliant, I can't have you become self-reliant. Because if you do, then there's no need for me.
Right.
So commerce has to maintain a site. You have to be reliant on me. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
And so what I thought about is, okay, in the information era, the interesting thing is that I can ask AI for an answer and I can get it on anything that I do. How to write a book, how to start a business, how to swing, how to hit something, with a baseball bat, how to be a baseball player. So that would mean that if all information is now collected artificially, AI-ish, and we have all access to human information that has been on the face of the planet for the history of our timeline, that means that in my hypothesis, this is the intuitive age. This is the age of no longer understanding anything at the surface of information because that is accessible to you. There's no reason to go get educated at all anymore.
Yeah. What I want to ask you is like, how do you think this shapes our school systems moving forward? Because there's got to be some big changes. It can't go on as how it's been the last, 50, 70 years.
I think the
right?
school system's breaking right now in front of us. And I think the structure of a thing that's been a few hundred years old is shattering.
Yep.
Because why go to school?
I don't know.
If you can ask that thing a question.
Yeah.
So learning becomes cheap, education becomes expensive.
Yeah.
You can learn anything. I mean, what's your thought? You got older kids than me. You're closer to that than me.
We've talked a lot about it, but it's like we want to get our kids into school for the socialization. Mm-hmm. But from the things I've listened to, read, talked about, it's like, man, I think there's got to be a better way. But yeah, I don't know. I think the big problem is it's just very easy. Drop a kid off of school, they go, that it's probably not going to mess them up to go through this American school system as is. Yeah. My question is, when does there become a better alternative, or is there a better alternative? And then are you willing to like make that decision and take that gamble per se with your kid, right?
That's I like that.
Because if they go through the school system and they work hard, and if college is still a thing, they go to college, they're probably setting themselves up for a pretty good life.
For sure.
But if you don't, what are the alternatives? Like how does it affect them? And I think the biggest one for me is like, I keep coming back to like socially, like we've put our daughter in preschool and like she needs to be around other kids.
Yeah. What's
So
the benefit of that, just from your observation?
I think she learns way more.
Yeah.
I think there's so much that a kid's learning, but even just people are learning by being around other people. Like we need to be around other people.
Mm-hmm.
So her having to share things, to be in an environment where kids disagree or they have their own style, I think like there's a lot of good in that.
Sure.
Right. I don't know if it needs to be from 8 to 3 every day, you know?
Yeah.
I talked to a kid this offseason who was homeschooled, and he's like, yeah, I do school for 2.5 hours a day, and then I go practice, play, I'm outside. I'm like, that sounds cool too.
Wait, what age?
He was in high school.
Okay. I didn't know if you were, okay.
Yeah.
So it's not a teammate.
No.
So you asked him.
Yeah. I'm like, what's the day look like for you?
Wow. He's
Yeah.
homeschooled in high school.
Yeah. And he'll go in, I think he goes into classes just a little bit, but he can do most of his stuff at home.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, man, that's pretty cool.
And he said, sorry, I know what you said, but I just need to hear it again.
Mm-hmm.
What was his answer to it? What his life looks like?
2 to 3 hours a day.
Okay.
Of either he takes one class,
Yeah.
or he does schoolwork for 2 or 3 hours a day, and then it's like he's good.
And then he's out playing, moving
yeah,
around.
Yeah. But also it could be bad. Like if
Right.
you're not active, that could be a problem too.
Yeah, I mean, everything has to be paradoxical, right? Like there's going to be some people that survive in that extremely well, and some
Like it'd be
people,
tough if like you just knock out your schoolwork, Netflix 8 hours a day.
Right, because the
Yeah.
idleness could crush you
Yeah.
almost. Yeah, it's a really fun topic to me, I think. I think that I was really listening to what you just said. I had a thought that I wanted to dive into on that same vein, I suppose, but it's like it'll come to me.
I think a lot about technology too,
Mm-hmm.
the phone. The access to information is amazing, but like, I don't know about you, but like I have to have it with me. I can't go to the grocery store without your phone.
No.
Like it's like a part of you now. It's kind of crazy. And like some great days are just like, it's down. I don't even think about it. And you're like outside or you're doing something and it's like, oh, it's not even a thought to like, I need to check my email or I got a text message or yeah, I think a goal in life is to like get away from it as much as I can, but it feels like it's impossible.
So do you think, okay, so just play with the perspective of not getting away from it and play with the perspective that we have become artificial intelligence on our own. And this is where I'm thinking, a friend of mine and I have been toying with this concept of the industrial age has ended and it's turning into an intuitive age. So this is an actual change in humanity.
Okay.
So if the industrial age was the last 350 years, I don't remember, that's close, accurate, somewhat.
You tell me, I don't know.
Yeah, it's somewhat in there. I mean, it's like, globalization started around the 16th century, and over the last 500-600 years, we've become an interconnected globe. Technology made a massive boom. Population really started to boom about 200 years. It just has gone like up and whatever. And
I think, I think we've seen more good than bad, but I think, and it's, if you use technology and you don't let it like kind of consume and use you, that's the key. But I think I'm nervous to see what things look like with like, kids or the teenagers within the next like 10, 15 years. Because when I was growing up and we were growing up, like I had a Nokia flip phone when I was like in 7th grade or 8th grade. Mm-hmm. But I couldn't watch videos. I couldn't look at things I wasn't supposed to look at.
You couldn't ask that question.
You couldn't ask it questions. Right. It was kind of just a brick, right? Like,
yeah.
And like we don't use our phone like that anymore. And I think it's a computer in your pocket. You can do anything on it. And it's also awesome. Like I've been able to stay in touch with more friends than I ever would have before. No doubt. I can see someone. I can see my kids when I'm traveling. It's great. But I think there's some big downsides. And I haven't read any of the books, but some people have been like, dude, you got to read this book about like what it does to, teenagers or kids.
Oh, I'm sure.
I don't think it's mostly not good.
Well, that's where I'm trying to say of like,
so I think for us being like raising kids can be a really big challenge of knowing when's it okay and how late do we wait to give our kids an iPhone?
Well, let me say this to you. I remember when I went from Central Michigan, I transferred to Minnesota State, and my dad and I drove from CMU to Mankato. It was a 12-hour drive. And to my memory, that's the last time I ever made it from point A to point B with a physical map.
Yeah.
And my dad and I don't think you needed the physical map, but I remember my dad and I just decided to do that.
Yeah.
And we went like a no phone. It wasn't as relevant of a conversation then that it is now. But I just remember for whatever reason, we pulled out a map and we circled the places we were going to stop and what this road trip was going to be. It was a father-son road trip.
Yeah.
And we did go the wrong way one time. We got to Milwaukee and realized we should have gone to Madison, but it wasn't like that big of an error.
Dude, I miss exits when I have the GPS.
Well, that's what I'm saying. What I'm saying is
I can read a map, fine.
What I'm saying is I can't
how much you have to pay attention.
Right. Like if I were to, if I go to a place, I mean, I think it gets routine after a certain amount of times, but if I go to a place that I go to weekly, that's 20 minutes away, I have it on my GPS on my car while I drive.
Yeah.
And so what I'm saying is mindlessly over time, my need to withhold conscious information is no longer needed because I can check out and I can just follow this thing.
But it opens up creativity for other things.
That's why I'm thinking intuitively of what does that mean? Because if I have access to all the questions now, okay, well, let's just play with that idea again. Is that if this is becoming an evolution in age, meaning intuition, is that why our generation and generations below us are getting so involved with spiritual conversation, with conversation?
That's a good point.
Yeah, conversation.
But I think about that kind of stuff a lot, right?
Right. Yeah, and that might be just biased because that's you and me rap about that all the time.
I'm fascinated by that,
right.
Like history and love learning about religions and people's thought process with that. Like
as do I.
I love it. And yeah, maybe we can think about that more because we don't have to spend all this brain capacity on reading a map when we're driving. You can listen to a podcast and people just gets the creative mind going.
So what is that? Because if we're getting creative, wouldn't we be, because we're not using something, but we're using something because we don't have to think anymore. You don't have to do the whole bit. You don't have to go to college.
Yeah.
You have all the information. And so if I have access to all that information and somehow I don't lose my identity in the information, I don't become the computer, I use the computer like you're saying, then I have a creative originality to be an authentic me in an information era, which becomes really fun.
If you have awareness and if you have creativity,
mm-hmm.
But I think you can get in your car every day, put on the GPS, listen to a hypnotizing track that is just some BS song that, is a catchy tune.
Yeah.
You spend no time thinking creatively. And you go through your day and then you get home, you watch Netflix and you go through your day and you didn't have one creative thought all day long.
How is that not survival of fittest?
It is in a way.
Yeah. I feel like it's biology still doing what biology does.
Yeah, I know.
What's your take on that?
Not to go down the rabbit holes.
You got to go down the rabbit hole. That's
COVID and all those things. But
yeah.
I think nowadays, like you have to be able to critically think really well.
Mm.
And one thing that I always stand firm on, and I hope to be this way the rest of my life, is like I'll say I'm wrong, and I'm okay I'll change my mind if I feel like I was wrong.
Yeah.
And so I'm okay with being like, wow, I used to think this and that's not true anymore.
Yeah.
And I try not to listen to people just to listen to people, and I think about it and weigh the decisions, and yeah.
Can I ask you a question about sports?
Yeah.
How old are you?
34.
Okay, so I'm 35. Are you cold, by the way?
No, it's perfect.
Oh man, I started getting a little cold. I'm happy I put this hoodie on. Shout out to your boy, by the way. Who's
Sam Haggerty.
Sam Haggerty.
Yeah.
Shout out Sam. That was literally my favorite hoodie, and I've never worn a hoodie. This is a real comment to my subjective perspective. I've never had a hoodie where more people compliment it.
Let's go.
In public. Like regularly.
Yeah.
Truly. I was at the grocery store the other day, and the clerk, I just wanted to leave, but the clerk had to ask me about this hoodie.
Yeah.
It happens all the time.
Thought-provoking, man.
Yeah, it's so cool. So shout out to him. But
Yeah, Epic Soul. I wanted to get you the other one because it's got a red pill and a blue pill like intertwining, and it's like which
Yeah.
Matrix kind of thing.
Yeah,
They were sold out, so you got that one.
This is sick. I love this. Is sick. I appreciate you hooking me up with this. So, and shout out Sam. But back to this question. So we're similar ages. And we were talking before we got on the podcast just about our lives, right? And I was telling you that I've been out of baseball. I got out of baseball. This will be 10 years this summer since I was a baseball player. So I've been a decade out of playing baseball.
Yeah.
And one of the things that, going back to what you were just saying about being wrong or not knowing something or having to change perspective, something that I can't have perspective over, but something that is interesting for me to ask someone like yourself about perspective is you've played the children's game. We'll call it that.
Yeah.
For the point of where I'm going with this, you've played the children's game for almost arguably 30 years. Yep. Can I make that assumption? Yeah. Okay. So in 30 years, you've changed consciously and developed awareness as an individual person on the planet while still wearing metaphorically the same uniform, right, being the baseball player. And it's not even a metaphor either. It's somewhat extremely true.
Yeah.
So how has baseball shaped or made you feel certain ways about what you just said? And one of the reasons why I'm asking that from my perspective is based off of the thought of, if I was 35 years old and I had coaches, that would feel really odd to me. Just off the fact that, like, I'm 35, you know?
Yeah, but like, you don't think you could learn anything? Not saying you need to go hire a coach, but I'm saying you don't think you could learn anything from someone older than you?
I think you can learn from people younger than me.
True, right? So
I'm trying to put myself if I was in the same thing.
Baseball?
Yeah. Like, think about how many coaches you think off the top of your head you've had in baseball.
A million.
Has to be, right?
Yeah.
Like, there's no way you even know all the coaches you've had. And so, but you've been, well,
the cool thing is, like, I've had coaches that are younger than me that I've learned from a lot.
Yeah. And so that's where I'm saying, I think that that's an advantage for someone like yourself, who's 34 years old.
I've seen,
plays professional sports.
I always feel like that's when you really improve as a player, making, whether it's adjustments with your body, your mind, your swing. You have to have a really focused, detailed off season in order to have a good season. Because I think either guys kind of stay the same or guys get better, or you can actually get a lot worse in off season. But I've seen the value of having like a coach, whether that's like someone you work with hitting or fielding or a strength coach. Like, there's a lot of value in that.
Just generally speaking, why do you feel that way?
They help you learn more about a good coach is like pushes you, helps you learn more about yourself, and teaches you stuff that they've known from, years and years of either working with other athletes or, I mean, that's really valuable. Like, I always say, like, when I've worked with a bunch of different people on like the body, cause it fascinates me. Right.
Yeah, no doubt.
And like, I tell my wife, she's like, how was it? And like, sometimes I'm like, it was all right, but I learned something. And I'm like, I'll pay.
I love that.
I'll always go see a therapist, like, oh, this person's really good with the body. Like, I want to go because I feel like if I can just learn something from them, like, they could not even be good at working on me, but like, I learned something from them. I'm like, oh, great. I paid, like, it was worth my money.
Yeah, because, and I know you a little bit, but does that even have anything to do with baseball after a certain point, or does that just bring you closer to you?
No, I mean, no, it's not. I mean, the goal is to like move better, be stronger,
100%.
So it can help my performance, but not,
right.
but not really. Because I think this goes far beyond baseball, right?
That's why I ask it, because I just feel when you play sports for that long, going back to it, you were a 16-year-old with a coach. You were an 18-year-old with a coach. You were a 24-year-old with a coach. You were a 28-year-old, 30-year-old, and you've gone through your adult life in the same, not the same person, but in this, you're using,
change a lot. You have to change a lot.
Yeah, and you're using the same. You're using the same discipline to learn more about yourself.
Yeah. And
I feel like that, and tell me if I'm on the right path or not. I feel like that's got to be hard if you're not constantly trying to go within to your own awareness of yourself. I feel like that's got to be hard to maintain the same career for so long, or the same journey for so long.
Yes. It depends what you want to get out of it, I think. But I also think it depends how much you care to or want to learn about yourself. Super thankful to be able to be an athlete for this long and play this long. But I think that probably one of the coolest things about being a professional athlete is all the failures, all the struggles got me to learn more about myself. So that's pretty sweet. Like, I feel like I've had to grow a ton by playing sports and by failing a bunch. I don't think I would have ever got that not playing sports. That's what I'm so adamant about. I think people should, whether it could just be like a movement practice or something that's really difficult that you have to put a lot of time and effort into. Because I think there's a lot of people talk about, it's the complete person is body, mind, and spirit, right? So I kind of try to see about ways to improve all of those things to be a more complete person. What do you think? Do you have anything like that you do? Or do you find that helpful?
I think that you just threw it back at me because I was listening so intently to you.
Well, think about it. Like, do you think you can reach heights? How far do you think you can go learning yourself if you only meditate, but you don't work out, or you don't have any physical outlet, or any physical, never tax your body? Like, if you push yourself through a really hard workout and your mind's telling you, stop, don't do it.
Yeah, you're a different person.
You're tired. And you have to go to a new place. And then you're like, wow. I've learned, like, I don't trust my mind. I trust my mind most of the time, but I don't trust every thought. Every thought I have is not a good thought.
I can rip with that. Do you want me to go?
Yeah.
So do you remember we had a conversation a few years ago? I loved this conversation. I was telling you that I don't know if you remember this, but I remember talking to you about it because it was one of the first times that I felt comfortable talking with an athlete about it in the position I was in. And I was saying that I felt like sports was a transcending experience because after every year you were different. Do you remember this?
I do, very much.
And so where I'm going with this is that I was I had a magnifying glass over sports for so long. And so everything that I did was to make myself a better performance coach or a better baseball coach or a better baseball player, or to master the understanding of a baseball mind. And it's the same obsession of trying to be a really good baseball player. Yeah. And I would say in the last couple of years, my brain and my awareness has continuously pulled me into what you were just saying about how it's everything that I'm using is this classroom, and it's a mirror to the state of my own becoming. So my art is a mirror back of how deeply in tune I am with myself. Yeah. Is this making sense so far? And so therefore, I need all these things to understand more of me. And that's where I've had a harder time in the last couple of years of seeing anything outside of two lanes. And I wrote about that in the book. It's either material driven or it's spiritual driven. And so everything for material is ego driven, reactionary, based off of desire, greed, need, self-identity, all these things. Everything spiritual driven is like a path of suffering, of burning all the unworthiness out of me. So in that perspective, I can't be my mind. So I cannot be the thoughts. In that perspective, I am my mind. I have to be the thoughts. Yeah. So I have to have negative thinking or self-doubt to learn more about me. And that was for me. Yeah. And I'm going to use whatever classroom I'm involved in because that's for me. So for you, like if I could have been in my ego forever, I would have been a 34-year-old Major League Baseball player and figured all this out as a 34-year-old big leaguer. That's not what it was. Yeah. And so, I want to keep going on that, but I also want to ping pong back to you on what your thoughts are on that crossroad.
I think that's true. I think you can also like purposely neglect one of them to just keep going, You can neglect a side of it to go down one path more than the other, and it can have a positive or a negative impact on the other.
Well, you have to have that. Yeah, I think
I think you can be in a position where you're like, all right, there's things I want to improve or get better at, say personal life, but I really like performing really well and making a ton of money, and I'm just going to keep putting that off and off as long as I can.
Mm-hmm.
And then you can keep going further down that path, and you might make more money. You might be a better player. But the thing is, you don't know how much time you have, I guess. Right.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Do you have another thought on that?
I think, for me, I found focusing on both sides has been important.
Yeah.
And I feel like it's the harder path.
Yeah.
But I think that's what I feel like I've been called to do, or what I need to do. And I think sports help me expose those things.
Perfect. Yeah. Beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah. I feel the same.
I don't know. Maybe I would have got there when I was 50, 60 if I didn't have sports. And I think it was a big, and I'm still learning, growing out.
For sure.
I don't know anything. I'm just figuring it out day by day. But I think sports exposed those things for me in my life way faster than if I didn't play sports.
Yeah. So this is the hard part. And I don't know if I can articulate this well enough. That to me is the point of sport, but it's hard to communicate because it's hard to see outside of what sport is, because it's in the fabric of society.
Yeah. I think over the last couple of years, I would agree with that 100% for me personally. Yeah. But I don't think, that's thought about.
Well, I think it's because it challenges everything. It challenges the fabric of everything.
Yeah.
Because I agree with you. I think one of the things that I've learned so aggressively through entrepreneurship and writing books and researching, and the path that I had into the big leagues, is in a very matter-of-fact way, I realized that none of us know what we're doing.
Dude, I agree.
And
to add to that,
yeah,
I feel like you're, in a sense, it's like you're just a program of what you were when you were a kid, or like your adolescent years, and then even your early adult years. And then either events happen or you have these experiences and you start unraveling things.
That's powerful for the timing for me, because I've been journaling since I was 15, and I have a full tote.
That's cool, man. I never.
Well, I'm going to have to tell you something I think you'll really think is cool about this. I went through a tote of all my journals. I knew where they were, but I've never really gone back. And the other day I just sat down. I was looking for a Sequence. Chelsea and I were trying to play Sequence, board game Sequence. It's a board game.
Okay.
And she was like, I think it's over in this tote. And I went there and I just sat down, and I had hours to kill, but I was also in that headspace, and I found all my journals. So I just started reading them. And I started when I started. So I started at age 15.
Yeah.
And I worked myself up to when I was in college, by the time I was 19.
Would you mind sharing what some of the topics you were talking about?
This is what you just said, which is what was so funny to me. Is here I am thinking I'm such an evolved person. And I was reading my journals, and I was like, I've been saying the same stuff for 20 years. What? What
you
is
must have been a smart teenager then.
I don't know. I mean,
if you're having these conversations with yourself when you're 15, that's pretty good.
Well, okay. So if we go with that thought, I was writing all these things pain and suffering is the path. Suffering for this, meaning is this. This is what I'm experiencing. This is what I'm feeling. This is what I just had. This is what I'm manifesting. And then you have wild parts of journaling. There's times where the first time I wrote, I wanted to make, 6 digits, and then boom, I was doing that at the time frame that I did it in my business years ago, and I sort of started looking at those things, and I started looking at my journal, and I had the feeling that I just said to you. I was almost laughing at the fact that I was saying things when I was 15 that I say at 35. But to my point is what you just said about programming, is that it's weird to me how relevant the mirror of our perspective is, and how much my programming is just me. It's my programming.
Yeah.
And my neighbor's an 84-year-old retired physicist, and he's built a couple businesses. We go on walks every week. And he said to me the other day, he goes, in all my times of studying quantum physics and the quantum field and the mechanics of all that, he goes, I align with Plato's theory about we're all idea and form. And he concluded that with the idea that every human on the planet is an idea. And therefore the potential of us all being the atoms of ultimate all-knowing consciousness, the all one, is potentially accurate, meaning you in your brain, you have all kinds of Mitch ideas, all kinds of form, all kinds of perspective. It's a mirror shaping back to you. And the more you go through life, it exposes itself in its most authentic form to yourself. But you were still this thing as a little boy. And you go through the whole journey just to realize at the end that you never knew. And you see what I'm saying? But in order for all of us to be one, you have to be that idea. And Harvey Martin is an idea. And you're an idea. And he or she's an idea. And it's all just an idea. So we're all just all the atoms of the whole thing.
Yeah.
We're all just playing in the thing, the show.
You think it's similar to the thought process that like every single person is a bit of consciousness from a bigger consciousness system? Like it's like one big system and each one of us are just a bit of that.
I think
that's very accurate. That's similar. What is he saying?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a real mind F. I don't know if I swear on here, mind fuck for me.
Yeah, no, I've been trying. Yeah, no, I was going to say shit earlier, so I'll make us feel more comfortable.
You can bleep it out. I think. Yeah. Are you good at that with the podcast yet?
Well, I've been trying not to. I've been intently focusing on my swearing. Baseball made me swear because we conform. We conform to our environment. So the design of where we grew up in, everyone swears.
Yeah.
And we can keep it in there. I like it. I think
if you use it correctly, it's really
powerful.
Really powerful
because it's got energy behind it. Yeah.
But if you're just constantly throwing it around, it loses its power.
That's why I think I like to use the word intent. I want to swear intently.
Me too.
And I want to be aware of my swearing because again, language is energy. Thought is energy.
So I listened to a guy talk recently. I think his name is Thomas Campbell. He talks about, it sounds like my big toe. It's his theory of everything. That's what it's acronym for. And he talks about that. He's like, this is a virtual reality. Mm-hmm. You're a bit of consciousness playing an avatar. And that's what it is. And it's crazy to think about. But I don't know. I think about this all the time.
Yeah, I know you do. That's why I love talking to you.
Yeah.
That's why I miss you.
Yeah. I know. It's the most fascinating thing for me.
Well,
but the time what you're talking about earlier is like if you're so consumed with every day just struggling to survive, do you maybe we don't get to have these conversations, right?
What do you mean?
If you're so busy with hunting, gathering, doing these things in order just to survive, do you like are we evolving this far as a species or as consciousness because we're able to have more of these conversations because life is a lot easier. So we start having bigger questions. But people have had these questions forever.
Yeah. I mean, I think that I love that. That's a beautiful segue into that perspective because that's where I don't think that goes back to my journal. I can only speak to that of my own history. Right. But if you think of my journal as an example to what you just said, think about what I'm saying is in 2 decades, I'm still asking the exact same question. Yeah. And I think that
didn't you find that it might be, you might be asking these same questions my whole life? Like I'm probably going to have the same question my whole life because it's fascinating to me. It's like, what is this? Where do we go?
How do you hit a baseball?
No, not that.
But it's been repetitive.
I honestly I don't think about it. I
tried too hard there. That's a swing. I took a strike. I got one out.
It's a blind swing. No, I don't think about that very often. I know how to.
Yeah. No, I know you do. You're very successful at it. Materially. You're materially very successful hitting a baseball.
But I think
Sorry for taking you off your thought.
I don't know if I'm never going to figure out life, right? No way. Like no.
No, I think well, let me say this to you. Let me act like this is truth.
What are your chances of reaching enlightenment?
I don't think you can. I just read the Tao again too, and I was having my wife's dad read it while he's here because it's all parable driven. And the point of the Tao and the way in which you get to enlightenment from my uneducated stance of understanding this is there's 5 stages to it, and we'll just climb up the stages. The 4th stage is the mixture of subjective and objective, so you can maintain a level of objectivity, and subjectivity. And the fifth stage is becoming love. So subjectivity and objectivity being the yin and yang, the duality, right? So all of existence is contractual through dualism. We cannot have good without bad.
Right.
Everything's paradoxical. Boom. You can get to comprehension of that in like this stage 4, right? And you can just accept that. So if you accept that to the fullest, you'd be enlightened, because becoming love would be the completion of accepting dualism. You would just be love. You'd be in eternal peace, bliss. You'd be able to live in paradox while being fully actuality of love. Does that make sense?
Yeah, a little bit. It's very complex to me.
Yeah, so, and me too. And I could just be explaining this horribly, but that's how I read it. So that's as far as I can understand it from what I understand about my own understanding. But what I think, I want to keep going. I want to go back to this of what I think. So imagine that this is truth, what I'm about to say.
Okay.
Even though I don't know if this is truth, let's just play it as it is. When we're little kids, when we're little boys, we are essentially all knowing when we start. And we're as close to being love or close to love in actuality as possible. And then we start to develop this consciousness, which creates imagination, which is why the child is this imaginative, creative genius in a way. And then we're about to go on our path. We're about to go to preschool. And we're about to get influenced and taught and coached and meet people and conform and get bullied and become popular or not or whatever. We're going to do all these things. We're going to get standardized on our tests. People are going to tell us what we are.
You're smart. You're stupid.
Yep.
You're not good. Yeah.
And then you're going to go to college and you're going to pick a degree and you're going to do all this stuff and you're going to follow the path. And I think that path is the only point of that path is before you die to somehow make it back to the child.
I agree. I was going to say, you're a child and then you spend your whole life trying to go up only to realize I want to be a child again.
Amen.
That's when I hang around with like a kid, that's what I think about.
Tell me more.
Like, how can I get in this headspace of just like, dude, they're not thinking about the future or, reminiscing about the past. They're just like locked in on playing with this Lego set.
They're in it.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. But I've heard someone say that before, and I'm like, yeah, like you're a kid, you're waiting your whole life to try to grow up, to try to, make it, and then you get to the point where you're like, oh shit, I just want to be a kid again.
Yeah.
And then you spend your later years trying to be playful and be a kid again.
Yeah, it's basically you were sitting on the gold the whole time, but you have to go take on the world to find out you were on the gold.
Yeah.
It's a lot of what I feel like I learned in baseball, because I wanted to change baseball, and the ego of wanting to change baseball. I wanted to make baseball a holistic system.
Yeah.
You knew that.
Yeah.
And we talked about that. And so years ago, when I was very driven and I had such a desire to do that, dude, I was willing to go anywhere, anytime to make that happen. I was going to go through anything. I was going to be the hunter of what male ego can do. I was going to force and penetrate and go after these things as hard as I possibly could.
Yeah.
And then I got there and I was like, this is my chance. And if I reflect on my own career, I went way over the top because I didn't know any better.
Yeah.
And so that was what I was going to do until I realized I couldn't do it. And then my only option at the end of my stint in this pursuit was to realize the only thing that I had to change was myself. And then at the end of it, I lost all desire to change anything in baseball. I only wanted to go, wow, that was like a big blind spot of mine. This was a huge blind spot of mine. And I had to evolve these segments. But that's a little chapter in my life. If I make that aware of all things in my life, it's back to what you were saying. It's like, what am I doing right now that I know that I don't know is wrong, but it's wrong?
Yeah. Do you think it can even be done, or do you realize that you might have had a goal, and albeit an amazing goal that would be great for the game of baseball and our society? Do you think it can happen?
Do I think it can happen? I don't know.
Like there's always a chance, right? Yeah. But like realistically?
No, I think that
like they'd have to change the game times. They'd have to do,
I think that it will happen. But what I'm saying is my point in the story is irrelevant. The whole thing for me was that I'm an idea, and I needed to get deeper into me understanding the mirror of my own idea.
Yeah.
And so it's like a rinse and repeat pattern. It's the whole concept of history repeats itself.
Yeah.
And so we're just repeating the patterns. And it's kind of the same thing. It's like society got so convenient, so comfortable that now society's going, we should probably sit in cold tubs. We should probably go for walks. I was telling my buddy this morning, I said, we got too smart to take a walk. Think about that.
I know.
Because you can't even take a walk as a modern human anymore without your phone or having enough research to prove that you need to walk. It's like, well, what's the research say on it? Does it say 17 minutes or is it 24?
It's so true.
Yeah, it's hard. It's weird. I don't know. What's your thoughts?
I think it's crazy that like we're just like, it's gone so far to the other end that now you're just like, okay, well, what would I do if I lived 500 years ago or whatever?
Yeah.
And it's oftentimes like, oh, you're going to be healthier if you do these things. Like a lot of the things that I try to implement and do in my life is like, okay, I don't want to be under extremely bright lights in my house late at night. And people are like, why? And I'm like, well, why would you? The sun's down.
Yeah.
We wake and sleep based off of when the sun rises and sets, like the circadian rhythm. Why would you want to be in front of extremely bright lights at night?
Right.
Obviously, when playing baseball, that's the game.
It delegates, yeah.
But I don't know. It's
well, at one point,
a lot of these things are common sense, but people haven't thought about them.
Well, at one point, when Edison made the light bulb, it changed the world.
Yeah.
And it changed the workforce.
For good and bad.
For good and bad, because that goes back to paradox.
Now you can work late at night.
Right.
You can get a lot done. Amazing.
100%.
You can use it to light up your whole house and get a lot of things done. Now you can also use it to work through the night.
That's the paradox, right?
Yeah.
That's the same thing I'm saying about walking. It's like think about how many modalities we have in sports to help your blood flow.
That's what I always say. Everyone's like, should I get some Normatec? I'm like the recovery guy. You know, people always ask me questions. Yeah. And they're like, should I get Normatec recovery boots? I'm like, sure. Yeah, if you want them. Like, yeah. Will it help? It could.
Yeah.
Like, they're not bad. It definitely can help. If you want to watch a movie and you're like, you want to feel like you've done something to get your blood flow, for sure, it'll pump blood through your
100%.
legs. But I was like, dude, I feel really good when I just take a 15-minute walk.
Right. That's what I'm saying.
And I think it's even better for my head than just...
Well, and that's the crazy part of where we're at, is that when I talk to you, when I've thought about in my profession, I thought it was wildly fascinating. How can you work on thinking and compare this? Would you rather think on thinking in a boxed room with no windows underneath artificial light, or would you rather go take a walk? Like, where do you think you would think?
No brainer.
And so the point is like, so Friedrich Nietzsche is one of my favorite. We can start wrapping up here too, but hang with me for this one. Friedrich Nietzsche is one of my favorite philosophers, and he has one of his quotes is "Never trust a thought that happened indoors." It's kind of like a funny slap, but it's beautiful, right? Yeah. And he wrote a lot of really cool stuff. And one of the reasons why I love reading like Ralph Waldo Emerson, I love reading this 19th century stuff, because it was in the midst of like heavy industrialization, and money is going, the economic booms, technology is booming, population's booming. So I just find those philosophers to be really relevant for today, because they're talking about what this is going to happen. Go ahead. What were you going to say?
So I feel like I battle between, because I love thinking about like, what is this? What is existence? Where do we go? All these things, right? Spirituality, religion. Mm-hmm. It's really fascinating to me. Mm-hmm. I battle between that and like stoicism, where it's all like, doesn't matter. For me, it's like those things, like those are great. Doesn't matter. How are you going to live your life today? Right. Like doing the right thing, making the hard choices. Like the having both in my life is so cool and helpful. Yes. The stoic mind frame of like control what you can control. Like, you can't control what you do, where you go when you die. Right. But maybe if you live your life with intent and you kind of live off some tenets that most of these religions talk about, or be a good person, try to spread love and kindness, put others first, just most people know what the right thing to do is.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's I think both are so like I love philosophy and I love like the spiritual, the religion side.
Me too. Well, let me say this at you and then we'll finish. Is that fair?
Yeah.
So one of the things that Nish talks about in one of his books that I recently read is he talks about what we're saying, and he's talking about education specifically in this scenario, but he has a line that I've been saying frequently because it just continues to come up in conversations because I'm in my own matrix making my own thing. But he said, whatever's fundamentally right will always be the hardest thing to do because the natural behavior of humanity is to conform.
Yeah.
And so it's rinse and repeat. So to what you're saying is it is the easiest thing always to normatech and play video games. It doesn't mean that doesn't help you. Doesn't mean that you get to mindlessly check out.
Doesn't mean you shouldn't do it.
Yeah, it doesn't mean that that's not helping.
A benefit on your life.
Right. It's not saying that that's not an enjoyable thing. Like if you and I were kicking it tonight and there's a fireplace on and we got red lights and we're battling each other and we got normatechs on.
So much fun.
It could be a ton of fun. That is not the topic.
I got you.
The topic is that the design of the 21st century has put it in a position where it is literally hard to force yourself to get out and go for a walk. And you have to now fundamentally do that because it's right. It's the right thing to do. The right thing to do for your entire soul, your being, your physicality, your mentality, your emotional control is to go for a walk. And the weirdest thing that happened because of our design information era I think is one of the paradoxes negatively to this is that, and I know this because of my profession, the fact that I would ever have to battle research and science for walking is all we need to talk about, is the fact that it got to that point. It got to the point where now you need to know the research of blood flow and what that does to your brain by walking. And that goes to show how out of touch we are with our intuition and our soul.
I know.
And we've missed that. So how can this not be the age of intuition? Because now you are going to forcefully have to go for a walk. And you're going to have to become conscious of that. Yeah. And you're going to have to map that into your hardwiring, in your habits, and your routines. And you're going to have to do that until you die.
That's great. It's
great.
Yeah. I think I wrote something down on my phone. It's like I need some sort of struggle every single day.
Beautiful.
Like so that's could be cold tub.
Yeah.
Could be going on a walk when I don't want to go on a walk. And I've never regretted in my life going on a walk ever. Right? Like you always go on one and you're like, damn, that was nice.
That was beautiful.
Yeah. And you're like,
I'm going to change the world.
How old am I? Like 80 years old. I go on walks. Yeah. There's this book, I could be botching. I think it's called Breakout Principle. One of the things to talk about is like how to get into flow state and there's a lot of discussion about this but what this guy talks about is like you can use things to kind of kick you into those states of effortlessly thinking, being in the zone. And one of them is like repetitive movements. That could be a walk, that could be exercise, listening to music, going in water, cold tub, shower. Most people that have had like crazy ideas say that it's either came to them like in their sleep, which is like a meditative state, right? Or in a meditation or taking a shower. It's like these things you can do. It's like, but everything is like tied back to like nature and moving. Yeah. Or using your senses, listening. It's not just, being inside, TV on or whatever. Yeah.
It's beautiful, man. I love,
but the walk is, anytime I'm like thinking about something and go on a walk, it's always better. Yeah. Or I come to a, conclusion about something.
Well, I think that you just become a channel to the source. The source starts to work through you. Yeah. And when you're into that, I think that that's when we go back to what we were talking about earlier. I think that you start to ascend into your intuition, your wisdom. I mean, we just had birth, Chelsea and I, we went the midwife route, and the midwife told us about a week before we had the baby. She said, hey, we want you to stay home as long as humanly possible, basically. And when you feel like it's the final go time, come to the hospital. We don't want you here. Yeah. Or not the hospital, the midwife house or whatever. And then we were gone like 3 hours after the birth and had dinner. I had dinner at a house.
That's cool.
It was great. Chelsea slept in home. Yeah. She slept at our house the night before and the night of.
That's awesome.
But the point is, the midwife said, when it's getting to game time, don't Google anything. because Google is not as smart as you.
Right.
And so she was trying to tell my wife, like, use
your intuition.
And if you Google,
Yeah.
it's going to make you not know.
Yeah. So why are you using ChatGPT, man?
That brings us all the way full circle. Because I think that it goes to what we're talking about. I think that you need to find a way, we can wrap on this thought, even though I've been saying that. I apologize. I keep using your time up. I think that the point is, and this is something I've battled with, and I'm still working through this philosophy, but I think that life is material, and we are to play material with our mind and body to discover more of who we are. Therefore, if I can write a book, I don't care to spend a significant amount of time sorting through research papers to find one sentence that I need, because I kind of have an idea, or else I wouldn't be writing the book. Yeah. So if I can use this AI to speed up 4 hours worth of research and I can get it in 2 minutes, I'm using it.
Yeah. No, I don't blame you.
And that's material. So, but at the same time, can I spend time attached to material and create meaning to it, while also being able to detach, go for a walk, and allow things to channel themselves through me, and know that the feeling that I'm having, the inner guidance that I'm having, that is me. That's me. Yeah. That's who I am. I can't even tell you who that is. You'll read about that. You did wrote about that in the book. Like, you can tell me you're Mitch Haniger, baseball player.
You said, who am I? You asked me, I'm like, I don't know, man.
I know. It's great. I don't know. But materially, you could tell me who you are.
Yeah.
You could tell me where you
what I do.
Right. Mm-hmm. What are your final thoughts? You got to finish.
No, don't put that on me.
You have to.
No, it's always great conversation with you. Thought-provoking, just like the book.
Man, dude, that went by fast.
I know. Oh, wow.
We were ripping.
Man, it's going to kill me now, kid.
Sorry, Amanda.
Should be all right.
This one's on the boys. The boys haven't seen each other in a while.
Hopefully the girls are napping.
Yeah. All right, brother. Well, I love you, man. Great seeing you.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Thank you.
Thanks for tuning in with us, folks.